right, all right.
Hello, and thank you for calling Movie Phone. All right, it works. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. How's your weekend been so far?
It's been great, man. Yeah, it's been really lovely. I love meeting everybody and being in new places. I've never been to Oklahoma City before, so I almost made a little blunder there.
Whoa. Edit that out.
Yeah, exactly.
Rewind. Yeah. So you've never been to Oklahoma City before?
Never been to Oklahoma City.
And, have you had a chance to travel around and check things out?
I've done some strolling around now in this area down here through the parks and all that. It's lovely. Went to a great meal last night, and yeah.
It's a really great downtown area. It's
Yeah.
a very walkable city.
Very much so, yeah.
You know, unlike some of the cities I've been to, very scary sometimes. You know, I was in Austin, Texas. Some guy tried to kick me off a scooter.
Literally?
Literally, yeah.
Wow,
But, you know,
jeez.
and the scooters are plentiful. Have you gotten to ride one yet?
Yeah,
They're so
I was
fun.
saying to Charlie yesterday. I was like, I think the scooters here go faster. Like, people seem to be flying on these
Yeah,
things.
there's no brakes on these
Yeah,
things. Well,
yeah,
literally, there are brakes, but I mean, like, no governor. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
I think it's also that people were catching a lot of tailwind on them with with these gusts that have been blowing.
Oh, yeah.
So if a scooter's normally going like 15 miles an hour, maybe they're going 25 suddenly. So yeah.
Yeah, we got lucky, actually. I know that there was a lot of reports and things that we might have some crazy winds, even some tornadoes. But you could see, we witnessed, everyone's hanging in the pool,
Delightful.
having a great time. So the weather's
it's
been great.
Super.
So yeah, welcome to Oklahoma City. This is my first time here as well, and my first time meeting you. It's really going to be great to just chop it up with you, talk about your career,
Pleasure.
talk about your life and things like that. I like to, before we get into some of the things you've done, and I want to talk about your life and where you come from. I know you were born in New Hampshire, yeah?
That's right.
And how did you make it from New Hampshire all the way to LA? How'd that ball get rolling?
I mean, I wish I could tell you it was part of some like master plan, but basically, after I graduated high school, I spent a year just sort of traveling the world a bit, and after that year, I was sort of looking for the next thing,
Right.
and I had an old friend who lived in Los Angeles, and I hadn't spent any time there really in any meaningful way since I was gone there a few times when I was little. And so I went down to kind of visit him, and I just stayed. And and I had acted in things when I was a kid, doing school plays and productions and all that stuff, and that was always kind of like I was a performer, I think, always throughout my life.
Right. So like school theaters where you got your start.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. But it definitely wasn't like on my radar really as a career path. And then I was down there. I was teaching tennis lessons at the time, and one of the guys who I taught tennis lessons to was a manager, and so he kind of started getting me on, he's like, oh, I can introduce you to some agents, and started getting auditions and things like that. But yeah, definitely not like a master plan for sure. It was sort of something that I think at least from a career perspective, I sort of stumbled into for lack of having any higher education or any real plan of any kind in my life.
Yeah. Did you start off doing theater, or did you start off doing like commercials and things like that?
I mean, I did some sort of, anything, whatever was coming my
whatever
way,
works,
softcore porn, whatever, it's just like those opportunities present themselves. No. Yeah, I did. I mean, I did some theater. I wanted desperately to do commercials, but I never booked a commercial ever. And started out with small parts and things, and sort of built slowly from there. But I spent years working in restaurants and doing a million other weird jobs.
Just trying to keep the bills rolling.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was. You gotta keep the lights on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as an actor myself, I share the same struggle. You're just waiting for the next check to come in to keep the bills rolling.
That's it.
And
it takes a long time. It takes a long time to build a career, and a lot of things have to break in your way. Break
for
right.
sure.
So it's a combination of a certain amount of, tenacity and perseverance, a certain amount of luck, and then a certain amount of stupidity, I guess. Just being stubborn enough to just keep soldiering on in the face of thousands and thousands of rejections.
It's true, and that's, I think, one of the testaments to your success and to the success of a lot of actors is that you never gave up.
That's true.
You just continue to believe in your dream of being an actor.
That's right.
And I read that your first on-screen role was in The OC. Is that correct?
I think that is right. Yeah.
And I also read, not to to bring up anything, but I heard. Is it true that you were fired from the OC?
Yeah, that was that was a dark moment. Yeah, I mean, I was just, you know, I don't know how to describe the time. Look, it was the time before like email was really, I don't know. I had an email account, but I didn't like check my email every day. And they would send you call sheets like when your next day of work is via email sometimes. But anyway, I didn't get the email basically, and I showed up to work on what was supposed to be the first episode of a few that I was going to do. My last day of working on that episode, I showed up like 6 hours late to set because I just kind of didn't get the memo of when I was supposed to be there. I was also like, 19 or 20 years old, so I was just a knucklehead. But when I got to set, they had basically like put an extra into my role. And when I got onto set, they just like the whole set just like burst into applause for this extra while like shunning me. It was like one of the most like humbling, humiliating experiences, certainly of my life up to that point. But yeah, then they fired me.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me as well.
That happened to you also?
I'm not the OC,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
no, I was doing like a Bud Light Lime commercial,
Yeah, sure.
and I was booked for the principal lead.
Yeah.
I get on set, I get in wardrobe, I get on the set. You know, we're getting ready to shoot the first scene. Director goes, "Okay, we're gonna get ready to roll." Everyone's in the bar, moving around, and then he goes, "Okay, ready," and he's about to say action. He goes, "Hold on a second. Who are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm the lead guy." And he's like, "Give me a moment." We walk off. They put me back in holding. I'm sitting in holding, and you know, sitting. I see another person come in.
This is devastating.
They put him in the same wardrobe that I was gonna wear.
No.
They replaced me on the spot, and then they held me in holding for the minimum 8 hours so they can pay me the SAG day rate, and they sent me on my way.
I honestly,
And it was a national.
I'm so distraught right now. This is the most effed up thing I've
It was a
ever heard.
national commercial for Bud Light Lime with Pitbull, and it was in 2 markets. So it had been Latin America and America. So you know that kind of paycheck
my
would
God.
have been
That's
massive.
like, dude, that's like a lifelong trauma situation. Like my situation is nothing compared to that.
What? I mean, you were on a huge
I
show.
don't care, man. To have to sit in holding for 8 hours,
Yes.
like that's sadistic.
And watch my replacement.
Oh my God, dude.
And they're taking it off of me and putting it on them. It's
In
because
case you wanted any further evidence of how messed up this business is, like somebody thought that was okay to do.
yeah,
you know?
and but you know it happens, and
Yeah,
here we
geez.
are. We're still here, still pushing.
Wow, that's it, right, man? Good for you. Hey, I want to give you a hug, but for now, I'll just give you a handshake. I'll save
Thank
the hug
you.
for after.
No doubt, man. I appreciate that.
That's crazy.
But you know, so you survived that,
Survived that.
OC situation and
yeah.
kept on pushing.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, man. It's like like you said, it's part of being in this business is learning how to deal with an unbelievable amount of rejection and people telling you no and people fucking replacing you on the spot. I can't even wrap my head around it.
And what happened after OC? Where'd you go from there?
Yeah, I mean, I had small parts. I had guest star parts on I think NCIS or JAG. JAG was one of my first jobs. NCIS. I had a few of those, and then my first big break was an HBO miniseries called Generation Kill that came out. It was like 2008 maybe. So that was like the first big job I had ever had, and sort of the first. I would say it was the first. Like up until that point, I'd always kind of thought this sort of felt like a lark doing these.
Right.
Well, cool. Like I worked on a TV show for a week or whatever, but then I'd go back to waiting tables for another 6 months or 8 months before anything else would come around. So I never even told anybody I was an actor because it always just felt like something that sort of periodically popped up.
Right.
And then this job, Generation Kill, came around and it required me moving to South Africa for 8 months or 7 months, and working with really serious actors and big budgets and whatever, and so suddenly I had to start answering for the fact that I was going to be gone for 7 months. So then I had to start actually telling people, yeah, well I'm kind of acting a little bit too, and once I kind of vocalized that. And then certainly, once I started actually working on, with other people who took it seriously, then all of a sudden I was kind of forced to reckon with okay, well maybe this is something that I'm actually trying to do, and I think that was sort of the first maybe kind of significant shift, and then there were other significant shifts along the way maybe that sort of continued to make me feel like okay, this is an actual career, this is an actual path of something I want to pursue and get better at.
Yeah.
And but it's a long path, you know, as with anything, whatever you choose to do. I mean, I think we're all on growth journeys with, you know, with our skills and with the way that we view the things that we, you know, our vocations or whatever. So it's been an evolution over time. I'm always learning new things about, yeah, the way I relate to this work, how I approach doing it, how I approach trying to be better at it.
Yeah.
All that stuff. I think I'm just talking nonsense.
No, you're not. You're making a lot of sense. You know, consistency is key. You
That's
got to
right.
keep
That's
doing
right.
what you're doing and keep pushing forward.
That's right.
And you've had a chance to work with a lot of, you know, tremendous talent in the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
Are there any people who you looked up to when you were coming up as an actor that you would love to work with, or that even that you got a chance to work with?
Yeah, I mean, so many people, and I just think there's so many like insanely talented actors and directors, and I mean, I think the most exciting thing, honestly, about doing this work is that on any given day you could have an opportunity to meet a hero who has created a piece of art that like resonated deeply with you, and that you could actually collaborate with that person, and you know, in a capacity. And that's like, you know, that's not something that a lot of maybe a lot of career fields you have the opportunity to say, like, yeah, like on a Tuesday I got a call from somebody saying like, you're gonna, you know, sit down and read for Chris Nolan next week or something.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's pretty wild. So yeah, I mean, I guess there's been to answer your question, yes, there's been a lot of people whose work I have been moved and influenced by and who've inspired me. There's been a number of those people that I have had the great fortune of sitting in a room with, or, you know, working with on a show or on a movie or whatever, and I hope I just get more of those opportunities.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to continue. I mean, you know, you're part of some of the biggest brands or franchises in the world right now. I mean, I definitely want to get into that a little bit. I would love to talk about Daredevil. I wanted to know, you know, before you booked the role of Daredevil, of course, Marvel and the MCU is massive, taking the world by storm. So many different entities like Iron Man, Spider-Man, and just the entirety of the MCU. And then, of course, Netflix starts putting out their shows, you know, Iron Fist and Luke Cage and things, and Jessica Jones. And then, you know, how did it come across your desk that you get the opportunity to audition to be a part of Daredevil? And I mean, I know how I would feel, but how did that feel to you? Was there a lot of pressure? Was there anxiety? Was there excitement when that moment hit your desk? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the first faulty assumption is that I have a desk. I do not have.
Yeah, I was.
You're
okay.
assuming I'm far more professional than I am.
Well, how about?
I take
did you
most of
check
my
your
meetings
email
on my
that
sofa.
day? Did you check your email that day?
Yeah. Thank God. By that point, I had a regular email protocol. Yeah, I mean, you know, auditions. A lot of auditions come in. At first, I think I mean, I knew it was a Marvel project, but I think they were, you know, extremely tight-lipped about it. I didn't know who the character was. I think probably the best thing I had going for me at that time, as far as the character description goes, is they were looking for somebody who was similarly built as Charlie Cox.
Wow.
So, because I think at that point they already knew in terms of the story of the season that I was going to be, you know, stealing his suit and then, like, you know, posing as Daredevil. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that, you know, that already eliminates a bunch of guys, you know. Like, most actors in Hollywood are like 3 inches shorter.
Yeah.
And the, you know, the big like beefcakey guys, they're not going to get the part. So it's, you know, all right, I'm in the running for this.
Of course, yeah. There's a chance. We've got a shot.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, then, you know, they had there was a couple of like made up scenes. Like I remember there was like a long, very villainous monologue, but there was none of the actual scenes from the show.
Yeah.
And I had gone in to read for a casting director that I knew in New York, and then went for one callback, I guess, in LA, and read for Eric Olson, who was the season 3 showrunner, and Jeff Loeb, who ran all the Marvel Netflix shows, and that was it. I mean, it was like, honestly, there have been many far more painful, drawn out processes that I've gone through to get roles than that one was. That was actually like kind of remarkably, I don't want to say easy, because there's always the anxiety and the nervousness that you're talking about.
Of course.
That never goes away. But as far as just like the actual process itself, which sometimes can be really harrowing, it wasn't one of those.
Yeah.
And it was, and of course, then you get the call and you're just like bouncing off the walls. And,
Of course,
you know,
yeah.
exciting.
And, obviously, you don't want to celebrate until it hits the screen.
Right, yeah.
Because
yeah.
anything can happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's how. I mean, many times I've shot a whole commercial and then it never gets seen,
right.
never
Of
sees the light
course.
of day.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
it's hard to keep that excitement contained.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But as far as your work and what you've done on the show, I mean, it's tremendous.
Thank you,
You
man.
crushed it. There was a lot of physicality involved. I was curious to know how much of it was actually you, how much was stunt people,
Yeah.
and because some of those fight scenes go on for a long time. There's a lot going on. How much of that did you actually get to do?
Yeah.
And was that a difficult process for you to adapt to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very physical person. I really enjoy doing stunt work, and I like the challenge of it. Whatever. I just like I like using my body in that way.
Yeah, I think I read something about that you like gymnastics and things like that. Yeah, cool.
I did that for a long time. So in general, my policy when I'm talking to the producers about it is like, look, I'll do anything you'll let me do. And that's as a kind of rule. Obviously, producers are pretty risk averse. They don't want their actors to be breaking bones and putting themselves in compromised positions. So they're not going to let you do the craziest stuff. But if you are making yourself available and presenting yourself as somebody who wants to, then I think they tend to be somewhat receptive to that. And certainly once you start putting in the work as far as showing up and doing the rehearsing and training, and they see that you can execute it, then I think that gives them more confidence going down the road into sort of letting you into the process. Obviously, the stunt teams on those shows are some of the best in the business.
Of course, yeah.
So they are doing all kinds of incredible work, both in terms of choreography, in terms of the actual performance on screen, but also of it making themselves available to train actors to do some of this stuff. So it was an incredible process. They had a whole soundstage basically that was just for the stunt performers to train themselves and to train actors. So I spent a lot of time in there working with them on the individual fight scenes,
right,
making sure that there were enough pieces of those scenes where it was actually me to, I don't know, for me to feel like like I was part of the process, and so for all those fight scenes in that season of Daredevil, I was very much involved in all of them, and I was on screen for large portions of them, and then for certain elements of them I wasn't.
Yeah, because I would imagine that because they're very long fight scenes. I would imagine that they split them up into smaller bits and they help
and that's
you learn it.
To be fair, it's also what makes like the Wonner stuff that Charlie did, has done several of now between in the different seasons, so crazily impressive, because like him doing 80% of a 10-minute, single shot fight scene is like, it's hard to just like convey how bananas that is.
It is.
And doing from a performance perspective, whereas at the most in a given stretch for those fight scenes, I think probably the longest segment that was just me was maybe 30 seconds or something like that, which is still a lot.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, it's very it's very physical stuff and whatever. But just the way that a normal fight scene is shot is you're constantly cutting between shots, so you don't need to be. I mean, especially if you look at like a lot of the more elaborate, filmic MCU fight scenes, most of those shots are like less than a second.
Yeah.
They're literally, the camera is getting a single reaction or a single move or whatever. So which only makes the single shot stuff that they did in those different episodes that much more impressive, obviously, because it's a crazy amount of work. It's so much choreography to keep in your head.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that can go wrong that that ruin a take or could end up ruining a whole day of work or whatever. So
Yeah, it's definitely the long shots are the most impressive ones. It brings it back to like the old, style kung fu movies of like, Jackie Chan films, and also like Tony Jaa.
Yeah.
I think Tony Jaa has one of the longest one shots in, I guess, kung fu history or whatever. Well, it's not really kung fu, but it's like Muay Thai.
Yeah.
But it's just this. He's walking up this spiral staircase, just
I've seen-
annihilating people, and it's just But they did it all in one shot. It's so impressive.
Incredible.
So,
yeah, they set the bar pretty high with that.
absolutely. But I love that when we take elements of that and put that in our media, because it is a lot of work, and it's a testament to how dedicated you are as an actor to want to do it yourself. A lot of people just say no, let the stunt guys do it, but personally I would want to be involved.
Well, and the thing that's important, and I think it's more and more kind of respected and understood, and maybe now than ever, is that stunt work is also character work in a way.
Of course.
And so it's an opportunity for the actors to bring the same type of characterization that you might bring to any scene into a physical, perhaps wordless performance, but it's still an opportunity to convey elements of the character. And so why would you cede that? Why would you give that over to somebody else to take the reins when it's your character?
Of course.
You want to be in control of your character as much as possible.
Right.
And the more that you delegate that task to somebody else, you're taking yourself out of the control position. And I'm a fucking control freak.
Well, I've had a blast just talking to you for this time that we've had in the city. I thank you for answering all my questions. I really appreciate you being here. And now I think it's time we should open up to the audience. We have a mic there. Just go ahead and step on up. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi, Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hey, Jason.
Quick question for you, if you're able to answer. What was your first thought, your first day back on set for Born Again?
I don't know how to do this. That was my first thought. It had been a long... No, I mean...
Oh, your first thought is, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, no, honestly. I mean, it had also been... we'd been through the whole previous year, all 2023, there was a strike, so I literally hadn't been on set for over a year at that point. And I think it was just kind of an interesting feeling of feeling sort of out of place and having to remind myself, like, oh yeah, do I know how to do this? Do I know like who all these people are and what their jobs are and what they do and who this character is and all that? Just take some time to kind of ease back into it. But yeah, I would say that was when I first thought, like, oh boy, what have I done?
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, don't be shy. Come on up to the mic. You can make a line if you want to. Hi, what's
I've
your
been
name?
waiting
What's your
on your
question?
question for 30 minutes
I know,
or more,
right?
an hour.
I just wanted to tell you that it's been an honor and a pleasure to meet you this weekend. I
Oh,
was
thanks.
excited that you were here. And getting to talk with you, you're such a nice person.
Oh.
My question is this: how do you get into that headspace to play that character?
Oh boy. Yeah.
That's pretty dark stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we all have, we're not all having good days all the time, and I think, part of being an actor is whoever you may be, 90% of the time, or even whoever you are, you have to find those aspects of yourselves or those sides of yourself of where you go in the dark moments. And like I said, we all have them. And then it's just a matter of like sitting in them. I mean, which is the thing that we're always avoiding in our daily lives. We're always trying, the goal is, okay, I'm feeling shitty, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling angry. How can I get out of this as fast as possible? Usually. And the challenge is then, okay, I guess I'm just going to sit in this and I'm going to feel how uncomfortable this is, and play around in that world, and it's uncomfortable, but it's also really interesting, and it kind of I would say it sort of like reached, like, for a period of while I was doing season 3, and especially during certain portions of it, I was uncomfortable, like in my daily life in some ways, but then it ends, and you can kind of move. I'm not like somebody who like goes around talking in the voice like 6 months later or something. Like once it's once they call cut and like you can move on, like great. But yeah, I don't know. I think you take on some of it to a certain degree. And as far as accessing it in the first place, I think that we all have stuff to tap into, however we may move through it in our normal daily lives. Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Kristen.
Hey, Kristen.
My question is, how did it feel to be wearing the Daredevil suit?
Sexy. Yeah, it felt awesome. I would say, as a kid who spent a lot of time, I have older siblings, older brother, like we spent a lot of time, choreographing fight scenes and pretending to be, superheroes or whatever. It was, sort of like a realization of a childhood dream to actually get to put on a real superhero suit that feels like a real superhero suit, and it's tailored to your body. It makes your butt look good and, all that stuff. So, yeah, it was awesome. It was very cool.
Yeah, you were mentioning that, when you were first casting for the role, that they were looking for somebody who fit the body type of Charlie. Did they actually have to make a new suit just to fit you? Or
yeah, because it turned out I was much buffer than Charlie. They did. They had to make a whole new suit. Yeah. Like they don't mess around with these suits. That's like down to the millimeter. Your body has been 3D scanned, and they've done molds and everything. So. They're not playing around with just giving you somebody else's secondhand suit.
Right.
But yeah.
All right. Hey, what's your name?
My name's Denver. So the version of Bullseye or Ben Poindexter that you guys did is a very different and very interesting take on the character.
Yeah.
How involved were you in impacting those choices of those changes?
Yeah. That's a good question. Not very, I guess I would say, is the sort of short answer. I give a huge amount of credit to Eric Olson, who was the showrunner of season 3, and I think he sort of created. If you loved the version of Dex that was in that season, that's largely owing to him, because he was the guy who saw. I think we were talking about it maybe yesterday, like a sort of two-dimensional character on the page, the way that Bullseye appears in the comics, a little kind of. Cartoonish maybe, and saw some possibilities for how to make that character something much deeper, more interesting, more dynamic. And I think, I was really stunned. You don't know how they're, especially on one of these Marvel projects where they're super tight-lipped about everything. You don't know how they're gonna. You don't see all the scripts. You don't know how a character is going to develop. You maybe see one script or two scripts at a time. So as the character was developing, I kept kind of having to be like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" Like and it's a rare thing as an actor that a job ends up better than you thought it was going to be. This was one of those really rare cases where the new script would come in and I'd be like, "Oh my God, this character keeps getting more interesting," and that's their writing, that's his writing, As far as the actual, portrayal of it. Obviously, I'm trying to add as much depth and dimension to it as I can to make him, a real character. But as far as like the arc of it and I think probably some of what you're talking about, that's in the writer's hands, and it's a rare thing that you have a writer who handles it as deftly, I think, as he did. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great question.
All right. Anyone else? Step on up to the mic. Hi, what's your name and what's your question?
Hi, my name is Colin. This is my wife, Megan, here in the front.
Megan, what's up? Colin,
my
pleasure.
question. Nice to meet you. My question is there a particular director that you'd like to work with in the future? Maybe a dream director?
There's a lot. Yeah. Probably Christopher Nolan. I had a dream. I was at like a destination wedding with Christopher Nolan 2 nights ago, and I was like, it was a very weird dream. And then the next day, yesterday, it was Friday night, I had this really weird dream. And then yesterday, there were 2 separate kids who came up whose name was Nolan. What? And I was like, this is a sign. Something's happening here. Anyway, I don't know if it's a sign. I would love to work with Christopher Nolan. There's a lot of direct. I mean, the truth is, there are hugely talented people working in this business, and there's so many movies that have impacted me, like, you know, on a deep emotional level or artistic level or whatever. And I would like to work with all those ones, if only to say, like, thank you. I had a small part years ago in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie, and it was like, you know, I had one scene, but I was working with a guy who had made some of my all-time favorite movies, and that was like, you know, I'll take that to my grave, you know, like, and that HBO miniseries that I did, that was like a David Simon project. Like, that guy made The Wire. That was my all-time favorite show in history. So, like, I hope, even if it's, again, in like some small capacity, if I have a few more of those opportunities in my career to work with those kinds of guys, like, hell yeah, dude, bring it on. Like, it's so cool, it's so exciting, and yeah, I just like being around it. But I didn't answer your question at all. I was being evasive,
you did.
sort of.
You did. Thank you.
I just told you I had dreams of Christopher Nolan, so don't judge me.
Don't we all?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, the mic is there. If anybody wants to step on up and ask a question, don't be shy. I got more.
Okay, all right, hit me.
Yeah, let's talk about your time in soap operas. I mean,
Oh, wow.
yeah, absolutely. I'd love to
You
talk.
want to go there?
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, The Young and the Restless,
Sure.
very long-running show.
Sure.
And, you know, you were on the cast of that show. What is it like? Because, you know, I hear stories about soap operas about how, you know, you get the script the same day and you have to be able to memorize it and then, you know, bring that character, the words on the page to life as best you can. How strict is it with, you know, flubbing a word here or there?
I don't think it's very strict. It was a pretty long time ago, so I don't remember, like, you know, I don't have a great memory around these things, but yeah, I mean, I don't think they can expect you to be like word perfect, but they also know that it's not, you know, it's not like Shakespeare, you know, that it's not like every word means something. Like,
Right.
half of it's sort of gibberish anyway. But yeah, I mean, like, obviously there's a crazy amount of memorization that happens. You know, I don't have a lot of other applicable skill sets in this life, but one thing I am capable of at this point is memorizing a lot of words.
Yeah.
So that was a skill that lends itself well to that environment. And then, you know, you just sort of have to be able to, like, lean into the goofiness of it all, and I mean, I think I took it seriously at the time. I was still like a pretty young actor at that time, and so I think I definitely wanted to do good work.
Yeah.
But then there's also moments, you know, where you've, you know, locked your sister up in a cage at the zoo for 6 months, and then she gets out, and then you're sleeping with her, and your brother turns out not to be your brother, and your evil stepmom comes back, and where you got to be like, all right, this is just ludicrous, you know.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You can't judge yourself too harshly for taking place and for taking part in some silliness. So
Yeah, how long did that run for you?
I was on for a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what happened to your character?
I had actually locked my sister up in a cage at the zoo. I wish I could say I just freestyled that. She kind of like I let her out. Honestly, in hindsight, it was sort of a Dex kind of character, because he was like super messed up, but he like was sort of like maybe redeemable, because he ended up letting her out of
Right.
the zoo. He ended up like him and some other person had locked the sister up in the cage. The other person was the really evil one, and he was sort of the Fisk. And then my character was like sort of being manipulated into the thing, and then he ended up letting his sister out, but then she had Stockholm syndrome, so then she and I got together.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
Yeah, she wasn't my sister. She was my sister-in-law.
Okay.
Yeah, that would have been really
Good
that would have been
clarification
really
there. That would have been odd.
But then I stole my sister-in-law away from my long-lost brother, and then eventually I got driven out of town because I had done all this stuff. And I was on to other things. I mean, I think the truth is, I think I had signed on to do something else at that point. So I think that was around that time. I think I got Heart of Dixie or something like that. So that was when I moved on.
And then you did a lot of stuff on CBS, right? Like a lot of different shows.
Sure.
When you're on one show for a network, do they consider you for other shows? Is that how that works out? Or?
Yeah, if you don't burn a lot of bridges and be a asshat, you know.
Yeah, because I think you've been on like 5 different shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's a workplace, you know. So if you are a good person to work with and you show up on time and you do a good job, chances are they'll want to work with you again. Now that doesn't mean they will work with you again. Just might be that the right role doesn't come around.
Yeah.
But I would say that if you're in the running for a role later on, and if you're, you know, potentially right for it, and maybe it's between you and another guy who could also be potentially right, but they know you and they like you, you probably have a better shot at it.
Yeah. So let's talk about All Rise. I mean, it's your most current project that you're working on or worked on.
Yeah.
You know, how'd that come about, and what do you bring to the project?
Yeah, I mean, you know, same as all the. Yes, sir.
I don't mean to interrupt.
No.
What were some of your memories of Heart of Dixie?
I mean, it was a great. I had a wonderful experience on that show. I've been extremely fortunate across my entire career to have worked with wonderful casts on shows that I liked, that I enjoyed doing. I have always loved going to work, and I think that's probably not something that a lot of people can say in general, but also a lot of people can't say even in an industry where people should love going to work because they're getting wildly overpaid and to make believe. But there's a lot of shitty people and a lot of shitty work environments, so it doesn't have to be that way. I've had that great fortune. Heart of Dixie was one of the best experiences in that regard. It was an incredibly lovely, loving set. I got to play a character who just was like too much fun all the time, and so that was like made going to work fun because I just got to be like the most fun version of myself a lot of the time. And then, you know, I don't have like individual memories that kind of pop out as being, I mean, if I were to think about it a lot, maybe certain ones, but yeah, I would say on the whole, it was just a wonderful 4 years. And it was also like the first longish running show I had ever done. So it was just a cool thing to, you know, kind of build that family that you get on a show and that. Yeah, it was awesome. As far as All Rise, I mean, it was similar deal. You know, just piggybacking on that. Also a great group of people. It was a show that I, you know, auditioned for, like I auditioned for anything. As it happened, in answer to your other question, one of the producers on All Rise had also been a producer on Heart of Dixie, which again doesn't mean you get it's not like you get any job handed to you. Right. If you have one guy who is a fan of yours and says, yeah, I want him, you have 10 others or 50 others that you have to convince. So you still got to bring it and do great work and all that. But it certainly helps to have an ally in the process, and he was an ally that I think helped kind of get other people on my side of getting the job. And then, you know, just another fun, great job of doing something wildly different, you know, being like a, you know, kind of fast-talking, lawyery guy, or, you know, who's other issues, you know, whatever. But I had a lot of fun doing that show too, and that's just, you know, it's a fucking amazing job.
Yeah.
Right? Just like in general, to get to do different parts on different shows, constantly having opportunities to look at sort of different sides of yourself and different tones of work and different content. I don't know, it's cool. It's a great job, man.
For sure, man. Well, you're definitely great at it.
My man, what
How
can I
are
do
you?
for you?
I was going to ask you, since you've been on so many different shows and during filming, you're together with them more than you are your own family, so you kind of become a family.
Sure.
Since you've been on other shows, are you still in touch with some of those other people that you stayed friends with?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that you know, it's definitely not a foregone conclusion in Hollywood that that's the case. In fact, I think probably a lot of actors have the opposite experience, that sort of weirdly when a show disbands, it just sort of, everybody sort of evaporates. But I've had the good fortune of, across all of these shows, usually there's a few people on each one that is, you know, while I might regard everyone well and, you know, have a lot of affection for everybody, there's usually a few people in particular that, you know, you have real like kind of bond and kismet with. And from all of these shows that I've done, there's always been at least a couple of folks who that's been the case with. And that's cool, because then you have, you know, this kind of, you know, I don't know what's the metaphor, but like you've just picked up this excellent group of different actors and, you know, creative people over the years from all these different projects and different times in your life, and you sort of, you know, it's this, yeah, it's wonderful.
Kind of
circle
an
people.
extended family.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Feel free to step on up to the mic. We have a few moments left here.
If anybody wants to just sing a song or.
Play some charades,
Yeah.
maybe.
Oh my God, I love.
I heard
charades.
you're the king of charades. That you're unstoppable. Hi.
Hi, my name is Kat. I met you yesterday. You're super awesome. So first of all, congrats on Daredevil and all that. I'm excited to see you in the future. My question is, do you have any fun or funny behind-the-scenes moments that you had in Daredevil that you can think of? I know it put you on the spot. I'm
Daredevil.
sorry.
I mean, I will say, I tend to be like very kind of, I'm a little bit of a class clown, and I like joking around a lot on set, even when there's tends to be some sort of darker stuff. And so it's not a very good story because it's not really a story, but Jay Ali, who played Agent Nadeem in the season 3, and I just would have stupid amounts of fun together on set. And I love that guy. He's just a total goofball. And so I think we were always kind of getting up to antics. But so that's not a story, except to say that yeah, I have fun all the time. I'm an idiot, you know. Yeah.
All right, so we have a few moments left here. I'd like to just wrap things up by asking you if you have anything on the horizon that we can look forward to, of course, that you're allowed to speak about.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, where we can see you next and what you got going on.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, you know, there's Daredevil stuff happening, but I have been working for years to get my first movie that I'm directing off the ground. I'm hoping that it will happen later this year, and that will be a monumental achievement when that happens. Because making a movie is an extremely challenging mountain to climb. But it looks you know, as good as it has looked. So that's an exciting prospect.
Any hints on what it's about, or you don't want to give too much away?
Yeah,
it's fine.
I'll just kind of keep it under wraps for now. I just don't
All
want
right.
to jinx myself too much.
I heard, yeah, exactly. You don't want to talk about it until it hits the screen. Yeah.
But I will say that it has been an incredibly eye-opening and humbling process of just seeing how challenging it is to make a movie, especially something that is something that's really personal and meaningful to you, right, that you don't necessarily want to make compromises on. So it's been a wonderful journey in the sense of like, I think believing in myself and believing in my vision and my artist's heart, that there is work that I can do and stories that I can tell that only I can tell, and that with that belief there comes a sort of an engine that drives you to do sort of unlikely, maybe foolhardy things like spend years and years trying to get a movie made, but it's also super rad. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we definitely look forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for being here with us in Oklahoma City, taking the time to speak with us, to answer my questions, the audience's questions. One more time, let's get a big round of applause from Wilson Bethel, everybody.
Thank you guys for coming out.
All right, and you'll be here for the rest of the day?
Yeah, I'll be around, you know, just farting around at that booth down there if y'all want to come say hi.